Hey everyone, today I'm going to be doing my July wrap-up. I read a total of 9 books this month, so let's go ahead and get started. The first book that I finished was Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. So this book is filled with so much vivid imagery. I was just pulled in by the beautiful writing. I really liked Jane's character. She was really relatable and complex. She goes through so much throughout the course of this story. This is now one of my favorite classics. Oh, and I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars. The next book that I read was All the Light We Cannot See by Doerr. I buddy read this book with Callie. I'll leave her link down below so you guys can go check her out. The scientific explanations intertwined excellently into the narrative. However, I wasn't a big fan of the way this book was organized. It just felt really choppy and sometimes confusing. This book was interesting because it made me sympathize with one of the main characters, who is a German with a really bright mind. So he is a pragmatic person interested in uncovering mysteries and discovering and understanding how things work. So I related most of all to his insatiable curiosity about science. So I would fly through his sections. The other main characters' parts were less exciting but still intense. So overall, this book was a terrific read. I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars. The next book that I read was The Nightingale by Kristin. So we follow 2 sisters, Vianne and Isabel, as they each find their own way to resist the Nazi occupation in France. So this book focuses on the home front and zooms in on the struggles women faced and their contributions during wartime. So it tells the story of how women were forced to house Nazis and live alongside them. And it also really emphasizes the loss of childhood. I enjoyed this book. I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars. The next book that I read was Dune by Herbert. So this book has incredible world building. It has lots of political intrigue and brilliant and complex characters. So I love the intricate relationships each of the characters have with each other, especially Paul's. So it's set on a desert planet where water is extremely scarce. The narration was very convincing and I really love this book. I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars. The next book that I read was The Return of the King by J.R.R. Tolkien. So in this book we continue on this epic journey across Middle Earth. This book has an exciting richness to it. We are submerged into a world filled with adventure and war. I love how Tolkien paints his characters who struggle to figure out the right course of action. This book was really immersive and I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars. The next book that I read was for my book club, and that was of My Salmon by John Steinbeck. So we follow 2 men, Lenny and George, both yearn for their own ranch where they don't have to answer to anyone, where they can keep their own crops. So it's a simple and sound dream. Lenny has a mental disability and throughout the whole book he is misunderstood. George is almost like family to him, looking out for him and trying to teach him to stay out of trouble. Lenny's childlike disposition attracts many problems for both men, hindering their plans to have that ranch. So I liked the narrative. I really felt bad for the majority of the characters. I despised all of the so-called villains. I didn't expect that ending. Overall, it was a fast read. It was really gripping. I give this book 5 out of 5 stars. So the next book that I picked up was The Stranger by Albert Camus. So the first part of this book is a bit dull, but it has a lot of amusing observations. The second part picks up and it gets way more interesting with a lot more depth to it. So the protagonist is basically an outsider that society doesn't seem to understand. So naturally, his indifference to life gets him into a whole lot of trouble that brings about public scrutiny and alienation. So all because he doesn't act the way people expect. So I give this book 3 stars out of 5 stars, but I really did enjoy it. The next book that I read was The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat and Other Clinical Tales by Oliver Sacks. So I decided to pick up this book because Tiffany over at Hierarchy of Reads was doing a read-along and I thought it would be fun. So this book was a fascinating read. It's filled with a bunch of case studies and unusual brain disorders. So it's written by a neurologist. I liked the way the stories were told. It felt really personal and really informative. So there are so many many afflictions that I wasn't aware of, and I'm really happy that I read this book. I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars. The last book that I read was Bring Me Back by B.A. Paris. I had to return to the library early because someone else had it on hold. So the main character, Finn, and his girlfriend, Layla, go on vacation in France, and all of a sudden she disappears. Fast forward 10 years later, and Finn is engaged to Layla's sister, Ellen. So they both think Layla is gone, until one day it seems that she may be alive. This book was a page turner because I wanted to know what the heck was going on, but for the most part, each character was one-dimensional, and the mystery of it all was pretty repetitive. So I liked the premise, but not so much the execution. And when I finally got to the end, when everything was explained, I was laughing because it wasn't plausible at all. It was a real letdown. I give this book 2 out of 5 stars. Okay, so that is all the books that I read in the month of July. I hope you guys liked this video. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe if you want to see more content. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!